performance so far has also shown that they are just in peak form. We finally get to start the grand finals. Everything is ready to go. We start off on Moondance in the top left, playing for Onside Gaming. He is the Purple Terran, Maru.
And his opponent, spawning down in the bottom right, starting with that 1-0 lead from winners. It is the finisher. Give it up for ENCE Esports, Serral. Ooh, he looks even a little bit more focused than normal right there. That shot just, usually it's going to be weird to say this because it's like almost like a micro expression that I'm looking at, but usually his lips are just like, they're very relaxed. They look a little bit more like pursed. You know?
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I actually do.
Yeah.
I would love the deep dive analysis Maru, but it really just looks like he doesn't care. He's just like, yep.
Which actually
Yep.
means he cares the most.
Is that what it means?
Oh,
Yes,
yeah. Yeah, it's like that,
You know
that
what?
4x3 shot with the faces. Where it's
What?
like Maru like sad, Maru angry, Maru
Oh, that one,
surprised,
yeah.
and it's, yeah.
I was going to go with the Hulk where it's like he's always focused,
Yes.
you know? Like this is how he looks like all the time because actually it is kind of funny. You could really go for like really stupidly over the top, probably incorrect analysis on their facial features or their play, like the whole like, oh, the Reaper messed up. And then it feels like for Maru it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, no, it's like the same. It's like the same as ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, Maru going to go for a one-rack expand just with a Marine here. And that is going to be right into Factory afterwards. There we go. Yes,
Nifty.
indeed. Very, very quick on that one. So not a whole lot of scouting going on, though, which, did you SCV scout?
No.
Like,
I don't-
literally no
oh.
scouting going on, right?
No, I don't think so. I don't think he's sent anything across the map. So skipping the scout, going straight for that Marine. Maybe hoping to sucker in an Overlord. Probably not going to happen. But just skipping that Reaper. And yeah, we can see that if there was a proxy hatch right there, Maru wouldn't know about it.
No, I would not. That would actually be hilarious.
Could you imagine game 1 of the grand finals?
Serral brings out a proxy hatch.
He
No,
pulls off the
actually.
mask. It's been Bly this whole time.
Okay, that makes it more realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go, there you go. But no, it's obviously very unlikely that would happen. I don't think it's all that unlikely that Serral would go for a rush, though. Like, all of these players, really, they got into all these grand finals, these points in time in tournaments. They're good best-of players, obviously. They're going to mix in some cheese, and Serral certainly does so. And occasionally on Moondance, which maybe you could argue, well, it's so on the nose, they have a reason not to do it, or something like that. But no, it actually could be potentially dangerous. And it's not like Maru is going for maybe one of the safer follow-ups either, by the looks of things. They're going to go for maybe a medevac from here, not actually reactoring out the Hellions. So it's not like a Banshee, for instance, which would have covered to a degree some type of fast roach push. So it is just greedy. And Serral, at the very least, has been able to scout that, actually. So really, from that scout, the lack of the swap of the factory and barracks, he might already be able to read into the medevac.
Yeah, definitely. Maru did this a couple of times versus Raynor yesterday to start things off. He went for the Marine play. He went for the Widowmine drop to follow it up, as well as that medevac. It transitions into a whole lot of things. But we got something very important on the production tab. We have got a Roach Warren. We've got a second gas. We have got Serral gearing up for what looks like it's going to be a huge all-in.
Right, yeah. I mean, there's always kind of like an awkward point where you can say, like, oh, if only they were already planning on doing some type of attack, this would have been like a no-brain win, right? But for this case, this is more of a reaction. So he is still going to be able to take advantage of very, I mean, basically non-defensive units. Hellions great against Lings, of course, but otherwise against Roaches, not so much. So Serral, I mean, the Roaches might have to deal with some of this first, but then they could threaten to go by across the map. Maru still not really getting anything that's really combat ready. The Raven maybe throwing on an auto turret need be, but the Marines drop into the main base. Widowmine drops. The Marines, are they going to stop short of actually seeing the Roaches? Oh, Jesus, oh, the Widowmine actually getting a pretty decent shot. Medevac almost dies. What was the timing on those roaches popping, though?
Yeah, we need to check that Widowmine vision because Widowmines do have diminished vision while they are burrowed. I think they would have still seen it, but it was tucked right into the bottom of the minerals. I think we'll get a look at that in a minute. Oh, okay, he sees it for sure now. Does he start a bunker? He didn't up till this point. It was going to be, and it still will probably be an attempt at a well, a 2-base follow-up from Maru. This was his game plan right here. But Serral, he's not going to let it get there. He is saying, I'm going to kill you right now. Banshee on the way. Is it going to be enough to hold? This is looking very dangerous for Maru.
Yeah, exactly. There's really nothing that does well against Roach Ravager. And that what's worse, really, is isn't just Roach Ravager to get a couple of SCV kills and be like, yay, me, I'm in the lead. This is with Lings as well. The Ravagers bust open the walls, help take down some of the Hellions, move them away, and then the Lings get into every nook and cranny. They also get those surrounds a lot of the time, too. Now, Maru is trying to make the best out of a terrible situation, going up to that main base, trying to get the Banshee, but only after the Raven actually finished. He does not have a lot to work with. Stimpack gets denied, but that might be actually the least of Maru's problems. He still has so much Zerg in the base, looking for a map victory right off the bat. Serral knew that there was going to be a weakness in Maru's build, and he went for the throat.
He certainly did, and he is going to be rewarded for it. We've got Maru losing more and more SCVs. The Banshee's out, but the cleanup is going to take years. Literally years, Tasteless.
Literally years. We are watching the death of Maru in this first game as he is kind of out of options, down to just 9 SCVs. Serral might only be at 35, but I gotta tell you, that's a much larger number, and it seems like Maru is just not willing to admit defeats, but he's gonna have to. Even if he goes across the map, what is he going across the map with? A couple of unsimmed Marines, a tank, and a Banshee?
Yeah. I mean, I
scary.
will say, this is some incredible micro from Maru to not literally die this moment, but once again, you nailed it down right there. He's got 2 SCVs repairing, and tell you what, that's a significant percentage of his economy.
Right? Yeah.
And that just kind of demonstrates the position that he's in. And because he is Maru, and because he has won games that feel similar to this, that's why he's staying in this game. But it's 47 drones to 8 SCVs.
Yeah.
I think he maybe thinks that Serral was on a lower worker count. That's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Yes, I think that's something that he would consider. I do really believe that up until maybe he actually was able to count his workers, either by box clicking or looking in the top right, there is a chance that he maybe is at 15 workers, you know, like, oh, I missed them over there, they're still stuck on the gas guy, something like that. And then there is a bit of a question, but even with that, no stim, it's like, it's not even just a production issue, the economy that leads to the production that he would need to do an attack. It is also just literally having an upgrade that you can't, there's no Corona boost here for the Terran, right? So they just have to wait that one out. So just not very useful. And again, if it was 15 SCVs, I'd be talking about how Maru would bring this one back. But going all the way down to 7,
Yeah.
that is just an absolutely insane difference. 7 drones do go down. That would usually be good, right, for a Terran, but not in this game.
Not in this game, and specifically losing even the 1 Banshee. That means so little damage, so little potential to deal with these units. And we are just going to see Serral recognize, or rather realize, the investment that he made in a completely won game. And he will actually win that game 2 minutes later. Good job from Serral. And I like, actually, really want to point this out. I like that he just went for the throat right afterwards. He got a lair, covered himself against cloak or whatever, any weirdness, advances his tech, but then he just goes for it. He doesn't go up to 66 drones. He doesn't go up to a 4th base, do something silly, double upgrades. He's like, no, you're dead. I'm just going to actually make you dead.
Yes. Yeah, he's, I mean, Serral has the killer instinct, but again, usually the awkward part in this matchup is that you're already a minute too late by the time you see a 3rd CC or something. So you're like, oh, if only I was already setting this up. But in this case, it really could line up perfectly. I think, again, the way that the opener displays with the barrack stall and the reactor, it does kind of hint towards like a finite amount of options, right? Like the branches kind of get condensed and you can be like, I think it's this or this. There's a chance that it could have been an immediately swap off afterwards and even a complete change up once Maru was like, oh, okay, the Link saw what I was doing. But I still think that Serral was like, okay, I think I know what's going to go on here. I think I can predict what's going to happen, and I know what's going to be weak against is primarily those Roaches. Again, pure Lings would have been dealt with the Hellions that were eventually added on, but that wasn't the trick. It was the Roach addition. And then for Serral to position his Roach Warren where he did was really quite perfect. The main base was going to be an obvious hit from the medevac, so you couldn't really put it there. And the Hellions could maybe go into the natural mineral line, but rarely would they go into that back of the ramp in the natural. So it was pretty cool positioning there.
Yeah, it was really neat positioning. And it's something, I kind of pointed it out earlier, or rather, I guess, alluded to it, but I'm pretty sure about this. As actually, we're going to intro the players first. So we have spawning down in the bottom right. He's now down 0-2, sending out an early SCV. It is on Side Gaming's Maru.
In the top left for ENCE Esports, he is Serral.
This really is his bread and butter. Maru, that is.
Yes.
Yeah, he just loves it.
Yeah, and it still works out well for him 9 times out of 10, even when the 2-Rax was found and defeated is kind of a weird word for that Lambo series, but still, like, it was, stopped.
Shut down.
Put it that way. There you go, yeah. He actually still ended up winning that game, rolling out of it and being able to make it look very, very good. Especially positioning it very far back. And when I feel like it is now a well-known location for proxies. I feel like I see proxy gateways come down there a lot. But anyways, for an Overlord scout, that is a far reach, even if they were headed that exact direction.
Yeah, we do have the Overlord. It's good. Looks like it's going to be stopping short a little bit. Serral is going to look around the natural, or rather the third base. Well, I guess that would be the vertical third with the second Overlord, but I'm pretty certain he brings that Overlord back. Very few people. Yeah, we've already got it rallied there. That makes sense. Thank you very much. Production. The player-in-player has been phenomenal. Serral, player-in-player, picture-in-picture has been phenomenal right there. Why did we're so used to calling it Pip that for some reason, yeah, my brain did the thing. Serral, wow, he's actually surprisingly close, but very far. So close yet so far.
Close but no cigar, which apparently was a saying that was made from when carnivals used to hand out cigars for victories.
Oh.
Speaking of the theme.
Look at that.
Whoa.
That is beautiful. Serral, he needs to pull this back.
Yeah, definitely doesn't want to lose the Overlord.
Oh, he's moving it forward. Okay.
So this has been a complete surprise, all right? One of the worst case scenarios for a Zerg player who also, of course, hatched first. Usually more than expected thing. Immediate drone pool on top of the bunker is going to force that cancel. And another one is going to be planted down before the creep actually extends that far. We can see the action of both players currently, as now it is all micro-focused.
Exactly. All but 7 drones being pulled right there. We're going to see Serral trying to come in here, get the surround, but Maru with some nice maneuvers. Oh, Serral closing the jaws. We will see those Marines still getting taken down. Nice little split on the drones to go after the 2 additional Marines that were reinforcing, but this is already quite a bit of damage here. 6 drones falling and all that lost mining time. You talked about being held. Well, it was held, but at what cost?
Pretty hefty one. 6 drones, actually. Darn decent amounts. I think Maru would be pretty happy with that, considering how he often is able to maneuver his way out of a 2-Rax that is even less damage than that. So with that much damage, should be feeling quite confident, and the barracks will eventually be getting some scouting done as well. Not that I would expect Serral to be the type to throw down like a Baneling to try and go for a Baneling all in. Like I was even mentioning that earlier in the tournament. Doesn't feel that likely from Zergs anymore. 2 Lings will be a bother, and then we'll see the straight up audacity of Maru getting a low ground command center after that, but it's not much more they can do.
But that's a lot that they've done right there. That is pretty significant, I gotta say. Not only does he kill the SCV, which is quite nice, but he delays the command center for a significant period of time here. And we're actually seeing no repair. Maru, speaking of audacity, he just doesn't care. He's like, it's fine. I know the 2 Lings aren't going to kill this. Like, I actually kind of like it.
You know? It's like when we see a probe tasering the pylon in PvP. And it's like, well, there's like 0 chance the pylon's going to die. It was like literally from the get-go, you don't do anything about it.
It gets down to like 60 HP, and you're like, okay, so you should have stopped that before the shields went down.
Yeah, exactly. No, of course it is going to get held. Now we have the follow-up medevac. This is, I really want to say, this is like a very typical Maru 2-Rax, or like even just general TDZ 2-Rax, where the 2-Rax, I mean, did a decent amount of damage, and the follow-up going into Hellions is going to be quite nice. Maru does get supply blocked very awkwardly there, so some distraction happened, and maybe even those Lings, right? But also want to know that Serral is once again adding on a Roach Warren as he finishes up speed as well. So the barracks just died. I'm not sure what it was able to see prior to that. He did not see the Roach Warren yet again.
Or the second gas just before that. Serral, he is putting his pedal to the metal once again. He says, you know what, I like it. It worked well in game number 1. I'm down very far behind in this game number 2. Technically game 3. It's always weird when there's a 1-map advantage. We can decide on something. This should have been for Hellions if he hadn't gotten supply blocked. Maru still hasn't seen it. Oh, beautiful wall with the Spore. Oh man, still 2 drones gonna fall. We are gonna see a fair bit of damage so far. This doesn't look like anything to Maru. Oh, that Hellion. They're about to pop.
About. Hey, he saw it. All right, and this is a large map. The rush distance actually fairly nice, and with that scout immediately builds a Banshee in a bunker. Very important right there. To be honest, it feels like very lucky that Serral's even able to stop that barracks prior to seeing the gas and the Roach Warren. Finally, luck turns a little bit in favor of Maru. He will have more of a defense, but this is still really a lot of Zerg once again, not just a couple of Roaches. Roaches busting open the wall so the Lings can get in, and there is just frankly not a lot of army. The Banshee will take care of the Roach Ravager fairly well, but it's the Lings. If they get a surround on these Hellions, if the bunker gets busted without much help here, this could still absolutely go in favor of the Zerg.
It certainly could. Banshee's not yet out. We do see that bunker going down very quickly here. There's not a ton of combat units, and Serral has a huge army supply lead. This is looking quite dangerous, actually, for Maru. We are going to see the repair coming on in, and as you said, the Banshee is going after those Ravagers. The Ling's going to wrap around on the Hellies, and the tank blocking the wall. No, Maru, not like this.
Yeah, unfortunately like this. I mean, hey, the bunker is still holding, surprisingly enough, so no more units will be able to come into the main, or maybe even the natural. So this is kind of the
end of this push. Yeah.
So that is actually really something, because with that tank going down like it did, and the bunker under so much pressure, I mean, we're maybe could have turned into just a straight up loss. Now, 13 SCVs lost. That might sound bad, but Serral had already taken the drone damage from the 2 racks, had of course cut droning to actually do that attack in general, and is only now putting his foot down to the pedal to actually get more drones, right? So at the end of the day, Maru definitely got a lot to work with. His 3rd CC is actually already 90% done. It's almost finished.
Yeah, and he's got that stim pack. He still has a medevac. It's got 10 Marines. He has the ability to still be a nuisance here to Serral. He wants to full wall the front, and I think that's, a good call here, just to make sure before he sends out too many units aggressively. But Serral gets to play the game now. I honestly think that if that damage didn't go down, that if the tank's not on the ramp or on the supply depot, the depot gets lifted, we see no mining time lost in the main, the Lings get blocked at the natural, the tank just obliterates everything. We're looking at Maru, who is maybe on an even worker count right now, and has the stim, has the 1-1 on the way. He's got everything going his way, and Serral, he's droned out of it, but has he really recovered in the game, got himself back into it? Probably not. So it's still a very high impact situation. Yeah,
without that tank basically being misplaced, there really is a less loss of life, and with less loss SCVs, Maru is, as you said, maybe even an equal worker count, which would be absolutely terrible. Still only down 9 is still kind of weird to see. And his 3rd CC is actually already heading onto location, although temporarily blocked by a lane by the looks of things. Yeah, very cheeky. So I will say, I will put this game into the, the department of, well, how much do you believe in Serral as a player? Because this is actually what happened with him and Gumiho, I want to say, or maybe it was someone other Terran. But yeah, he was in maybe a problematic position, but I just looked at it and I was like, well, it is Serral, and he's going to make the right choices to come out of this, and that's exactly what ended up happening. But Maru's the other guy you would say that for, too. So that's the weird, immovable object,
What happens when an unstoppable force that's also an immovable object hits an unstoppable force that's also an immovable object too? It just, it breaks so many things. It's the weirdest, silliest expression, but these guys are so good. We've already seen it displayed so much. The auto turret harass really just kind of getting whatever it can, which is, kind of nice. We do see, speaking of the mass bio play, we actually have quite a few barracks here from Maru, and no add-ons on the 2 at the natural. That is quite something.
Yeah, actually going into maybe it's 7 racks. Yeah. Well, I mean, we usually call the 8 racks all in on 3 bases, right?
Yeah.
So it is a decision. At the time, though, it was kind of one of the biggest downsides of that was not just like the later 4th base. It was also, yes, the lack of splash. But now that Maru has been doing so much with just pure mass bio, I do wonder if that is as much of a problem. You still have the delayed 4th base, though. Like, it's not coming down anytime soon. So that is still an issue. Maru absolutely still has to do damage. Unfortunately, Serral is going to interrupt things with a little bit of a Baneling run by. Maru was preparing for some type of run by with the rally to supply depot, just not that much. But with all the army of the Zerg on the other side of the map, what is up that home? Some Banelings did form up, but the Terran is already deep onto Crete. Maybe that's a bad thing, as he almost gets surrounded with the Banelings closing in, but not quite. Those Marines slip out of the Ling's grasp, and while the forward tank actually does get destroyed, 2 tanks still anchor this push.
They certainly do. We've got Maru doing his best. He is going to try and go after this hatchery. There is reinforcements coming across the map. Maru needs those desperately. Serral wants to break this push before that point, but the tanks are so well placed. The Marines are going to show up, and that's going to give Maru the firepower he needs to clean up this army. Very well done there from Maru. But Serral, I mean, he made a fight of it.
Yes, actually. I think that if he had... Well, I'm not even going to say like maybe less on the attack, because I'm not sure what it really was going to be about 5 or 6 extra units there. But I do want to say that if his surround had worked out on the Marines that were still a little bit on creep, because Maru did absolutely push aggressively there, then the Banelings might have actually connected. And then you're talking about only 5 Marines instead of 15 and the 2 tanks. And the 2 tanks are a little bit easier to clean up when they're not properly protected by just pureling, right?
Yeah.
So that actually would have been one of those best case like magic scenarios that Serral can often, force, where it's just like, oh, he did everything perfectly, just barely enough, okay, way to go. But Maru, he actually this time chose the right strategy. The 2 racks opener into the just barely defending of the all-in, really, from Serral into the 3 base push really worked out well.
Yeah. All right, so we are going to be going into something pretty neat. Players obviously need to take a small little break, but for now you're going to get to see us, Cosmic Sapphire, looking lovely in the background. This series has been pretty interesting so far. It's a relatively short series, but I think we're going to take a peek at it nonetheless. As you see this, who do you think is playing better so far?
I'm still going to say Serral, actually.
I think so, too. I think he's been a little bit sharper. Maru has made a couple of uncharacteristic mistakes, particularly the one that really sticks to me, and it's ironically on the game that he won, was the siege tank.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. As well as the Hellion supply block. I mean, there's a couple of things, right? But I think that it is still a bit early in the best of 7 to tell exactly who's going to come out on top. But let's go ahead and throw it over to an analysis break, I suppose, as they actually look into those first 2 games.
Fast first 2 games here, Lambo. Is that what we expected out of Serral versus Maru?
Maybe not necessarily. It depends a little bit on the maps. I think Serral always puts in an all-in in a series, at least once in like one of these big series, best of 7s, and he picked the right game for it. I think what was seen from Maru recently is that he didn't really open that much with Banshee, so he noticed that, and on Maru's first map picks, on Maru's favorite map, he decided, okay, I think I have a good shot with the Roach build, and it worked out perfectly, and also kind of set the tone for the series. He tried it right after again. Knowing Serral, I would expect him to not do it again, but now Maru might play a little bit more scared, so it's really nice to get those in early into the series.
In the second game on Cosmic Sapphire, we saw a quick 2-rex push out of Maru. It's one of these builds that in tournaments has an extremely high win rate. Do you think we will see this build again in the near future?
We might just. Very often Maru, if he loses a map, he just starts playing Proxy Rex, but in this case it was also on Serral's first map pick, so the same logic applies here. And yeah, I mean, the strategy is super strong, but Serral got kind of caught off guard because he sent the first Overlord to the wrong direction. And at that point, it's just really difficult. We could see the micro from Maru's point of view.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Just want to take a look at the first game real fast, the Roach all-in, talk us through a little bit, see what happened exactly. Do you like the idea, Lambo?
Yeah, sure.
Very nice. Okay. So indeed, we saw him open up with a Marine drop, couple of Hellions, and a Raven.
Yeah. He's played this build many times in the past, and it doesn't have a fast tank because he follows it up with a Raven and he used the factory for an extra reactor. So he just doesn't really have enough firepower here to hold. He would have needed a bunker on the high ground, but it's very difficult for trying to know if the Zerg is that committed. So if it's just a pressure build and then he drones up behind it, he makes a bunker on the main base, forfeits the base. It's really bad for him, but in this case he just didn't have enough units and had no chance to defend it. This is more or less a build or a win. We don't really want to talk too much about this game. I think for the rest of the series we're going to see a bunch of different strategies. For sure I could see another Proxy Rex happening, but what I'm looking forward to the most is how Serral will handle the late game of Maru, because I don't know personally how to, and when I talked with him, I'm not sure that he knows either how he approaches it, so I would love to see what he figured out there.
Yeah, what maps do you think are most likely to see that type of late game on?
I guess Data C, Inside and Out are maps that we could see him camping. Serral actually got to veto Stargazers, which makes his lead from coming from the winner's bracket even more intense. So not only one map ahead, but also Maru's best map. out of the best of 7. So pretty funny to see though that both players also won on their opponent's map picks. So I mean they can win on any map. So it's just super exciting to watch.
Yeah, definitely. Here for a second it felt like Serral was going to break, the tank blocking the depot, but the bunker in the low ground never going down. Were you ever worried for Maru here?
Not really. The moment the SCV surrounded the bunker, I don't think there was enough DPS to ever kill it, and the benches just cleared up overall in general. I think this was one of the worst fights that Maru could have taken, especially because the tank was on top of the depots instead of siege somewhere safer. Like if it was on the left side of the depot, it would have been unkillable. But either way, this hold was not the cleanest, but good enough for Maru.
Yeah, and then after that a nice little 2.5 base all-in, I guess we could call it, which ended up just working out for Maru. Serral tried with a nice run by, but didn't quite win there. Yeah, that's going to be it over here from the Shopify Rebellion analyst desk, and we'll be throwing it to a quick break. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everyone. We got ourselves a series as both players have taken a map. That still puts Serral in the lead at 2-1, though, thanks to the upper bracket advantage that he has, as well as the analyst talking about his first veto as well. Stargazer is not something we have to worry about, but we do still have a couple of maps left that are also going to potentially give us that super, super late game. The inevitable Maru Turtle. What can Serral do about that? Really, I just want us to get to a mid game at least first, right? I don't think that last game counted.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because in terms of game plan, going into a series, sometimes Maru will just do something. He'll pick a build, and he'll say, stop it. And if the player can't stop it, he'll do it again.
Yeah.
And then if they can't stop it, he'll do it again. And sometimes, you know, before they can stop it, it's 4-0, and then the tournament's over. And we actually saw Serral kind of do that a little bit after the first game. He's like, you know, okay, let me take a page out of your book. I'm going to hit you with the big all-in. Now, obviously, he was pretty far behind from the Proxy 2 racks. Wasn't a comfortable situation. But then he gets in, tries with the Roachling Bane, or Roachling Ravager once again. Tries to bust, and I mean, obviously it was a hold and it's a different situation, but yeah, it's interesting.
He was also very close to having it completely unscouted, which would have maybe made it a win. So probably made it a win too.
I think without the Banshee, it's a, you camp the main base, you get in with like the Ling Roach Ravager, it's very scary. But we are going to have, spawning up in the top right, it is for Onside Gaming, Maru.
In the bottom left, as the yellow Zerg, he is Serral.
What many people would consider to be a battle of the GOATs. I know that saying who the GOAT is ridiculous. It's going to get you so much flack. But I think almost everyone, a vast majority of the community, would choose one of these players as the GOAT. One of these players is their pick.
I think with the hot seat questions we were all asked, I do believe that was supposed to be the bait.
Yeah.
It was like, who's the greatest of all time? And it was supposed to be who answered Maru and who answered Serral. And then, well, certainly some people answered like Rogue, right?
Yeah,
And then,
Rogue can be in the conversation.
Yes, exactly.
For sure.
Absolutely. In fact, that was one of the reasons I have a picture of me with, two toy goats, because it was Serral versus Rogue.
Nice.
I was thinking like all over, so I still stand by my innovation pick and his arena dominance lasting so long, but whatever, man. But I do believe it was a bait. So whoever said Maru, people yelled at them. Whoever said Serral, people yelled at them. People just like to yell.
Oh, yeah. People love yelling. So I did something kind of interesting, with this right here. They were very kind, and they didn't ask me that question because they're like, oh, you're the young, new commentator on the scene at your first Premier tournament, which, by the way, thank you so much to Team Liquid and TLNet for having me on here. Really been a pleasure, and I've appreciated it a lot. But they were like, no, we're not going to ask you that question. We're not going to set you up. Well, what do I do as we get into the grand finals between the two of them? I invite it in anyways. That's the kind of devil may care silliness that I'll get myself into. You
know what, though? I do believe more people yelled about my choice of vanilla, and then also more people were really talking about the amount of eggs that we all said we could eat.
That one's actually a really weird one. The number of eggs. Oh, the number of eggs is...
Well, it was a weird question to begin with.
Yeah.
But then I just didn't even like really think it through. I also was thinking of it as if you had like a gun to your head, you're like eat as many, like even if you're gonna throw up afterwards.
Yeah.
Because absolutely, I think if any of us ate 20, because a lot of people said 20, it is coincidental. We would throw up 100%.
Oh, you get so sick. I said 10, which I still was like, I really don't want to do this.
I really don't want to.
Please no. That sounds awful to me.
Very unpleasant.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about how Maru sometimes does the thing where he's like, well, you can't hold the 2 racks, and just do it again, and do it again, and he'll do it again. He does not actually. Waterfall coming in here without a 2 racks. He is going to open up with that reactor barracks factory starport with a medevac, so like game 1, which Serral was able to punish. I'm not sure if this time around Serral actually got something into that high ground to see what the setup was, because if he did, I do wonder if it would have been worth it to try again, but then there is something to be said about what actually the analysts were pointing out as well, is that there could be an adaptation from Maru as well, where he's like, yeah, I'm totally opening the exact same way and going to the exact same thing. JK, I'm actually going to get a tank. But that's actually not the case. Serral did not get to scout what the opener was. I think he'll quickly figure it out when the medevac comes in. Actually, the Overlord might see it first. But then we have the follow-up with a bunch of barracks a lot of time, right? And Waterfall being shortest map in the map pool can be very good for the Terry pushes. Terran.
Yeah, what a brilliant link position right there from Serral. Spots the 1 Hellion, and that actually gives him the information that he was missing. He wasn't sure about it, but he sees 1 Hellion, and then he sees 2 more. Now he's got Lings in position. Maru going to try and unload. He's going to try and tuck that Widowmine into a nasty spot. There it is. Once again, Serral. Oh, the pull. Split. Oh, nicely done by the Finnish player. Excellent defense.
Better than the first time around, actually, where he did take 4 drone losses, was it, to the Widowmine? But it was like the less important story that was happening, because there was a Roach Horn on the way. Not this time. It is just about making sure that he plays a flawless opening game in this TVZ. What did the Overlord see before it was pushed back to the top right? It's probably the tech lab on the starport, realizing that it's going to be a Raven follow-up. Yes, indeed. And actually, Ling just saw the 3rd CC that was placed very obviously on the front, so that's some good information there.
Great scout from Serral. Something important to note as well is that Maru, previously, I believe yesterday, he made a fake cloak a couple of times on his tech lab. This time did not do it. Either was focused a little bit more on the Widowmine drop, already saw that he was being scouted, and he's like, okay, well, there's no point now. Or, he just, when the Overlord comes in from a certain angle, it gets the vision first. That being said, we are going to see a big push coming on in. And just going to clear some creep here. Nice job.
It's like deceptive, because there's a lot of units, but then the actual units themselves, they aren't that impressive. The Hellions do still take care of Lings as good as ever, and the medevac could have always picked something up and then went a different direction, forced a bit of a split, but that died. And then the Marine count actually wasn't that high, so while they were going to have stim, and that little bit of an extra punch can cause the loss of a couple of queens, really, this wasn't still a lot. It just had to be taken seriously, I think, by Serral, which he basically did, but even having to cancel his hatchery, was that twice? It was kind of nice. It was 150 minerals down.
Yeah, 150 minerals down the drain. He did lose a couple of units, but I think it was actually just a Hellion and a Marine. So really not too bad there. He lost the medevac earlier, yeah. But being able to get the cancel, that's fantastic. And that's actually the cost of the Hellion and the Marine.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, I still think the loss of the medevac it stings. Just because, yes, exactly. It would be opening up for another drop, maybe of Hellions in the future. They could also turn to Hellbats, of course, right? But the point is just more units better, but then also more mobility better, right? Would be the medevac's greatest strength. So now we move on to more of a mid-game. Now, Waterfall is still going to be a short map, so unlike Moondance, where you have the expansions, first of all, plentiful, but also kind of expanding on like kind of your side, even behind your main, actually. Waterfall, it does get claustrophobic pretty quickly. Like, you're still expanding kind of to your opponent, especially depending on where they go to their 4th base, as Maru will eventually choose that. And we have some upgrades for Serral, as he also sets up a Ling run-by, or Bane Ling run-by, actually, when Maru perhaps isn't looking.
Yeah, and it looks like that +1 Carapace might have been just a little bit late there for Serral, and that could have a pretty big impact on this first push. Not having one of those upgrades, particularly the Carapace upgrade, which allows you to connect on those Marines with the Lings, with the Banes, much more effectively, is going to be pretty impactful. We will see... Oh, the dodge. Oh! Maru, does he see it? Oh, he... well, now he does. Does he?
Hello?
Oh, it's a bait. It's a bluff.
Moshi Mosh? Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't see it. So that actually might get some damage done. At the very least, kill a couple of supply depots. But Maru... Ooh.
Oh, pull.
It is going to kill a decent amount of SCVs. That was a bit of a late pull. Maru is going to pull them back into a very safe position tank. 7 SCVs still go down. A little bit of distraction as well, but Maru still gets set up on the front lines on Serral's 4th base. Already trying to get something done there. Oh, okay, that's where Serral's army was. He had already set up the surround and just comes in, completely wipes the floor with Maru, and Maru just is like, I guess I'll get out with these units. Okay, cool.
Yeah, brilliant maneuver right there from Serral, and he waited for almost the exact second that +1 Carapace finished. He realized his upgrades were mistimed. We're going to see him continue trying to attack here. He is off 3, but he's going to get the wraparound, and there's only 1 medevac to keep these Marines alive, and of course the tank and that DPS is going to be enough. A couple of depots go down. I think that might have been an overcommitment on the counterattack just a little.
Yeah, I think you're right. But I think what also, the reason I went ooh is because that tank hit like the heart of the Banelings on the front.
Oh.
Yeah, so there was I want to say like 6-7 Banelings that were threatening the Marines on the back line. And then the leftover Banelings actually did hit a decent amount of Marines that were unloaded from the medevac anyway. So it may be a bit of an overextension, but also probably okay. Serral was looking to capitalize on that fantastic defense, get something done on the side of the map, and as long as he was able to retreat at all, and there wasn't just going to be like, Maru coming back at him immediately either, then he was good to go. So a lot of cubes to work with, 5 bases up and running, upgrades on the way alongside a hive actually. So that hive is about 30% done, and now Serral is just tracking Maru's drops. Maru's adding on a 4th base, 2nd factory. It's weird, but Waterfall might be the map that we get our late game.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking like there's a real possibility of that. Now, if it goes to the super late game, things get pretty tough for Zerg once you get up to 5 bases, Ghost, all that jazz. But, I mean, there's a lot of places to attack on Waterfall, too, so it's not the easiest to just turtle as Terran. We're still a little bit of a ways away from that. We will see this triple drop trying to come up in between, well, first the main base, but then the pocket, 3rd, 4th, yeah. And then we'll get blocked. We see a little bit of patrol actually blocking that drone from building the spore, so kind of funny right there. Maru going to try and out-multitask Serral to start things off, and of course Serral, he's answering everything.
Yeah, it's not much really that Maru's able to do. I mean, even kind of, this is decent. But I was going to say, if he's locked out from using killing creep spread, that's pretty bad. But at least gets another cancel on a base. And I mean, his units are still alive, so if they did want to leave, they could. I think he is holding on to them for a later push. Serral's hive has finished, immediately boots up. Vipers and Adrenal Glands all starting to work on some of those Hydra upgrades. Scan reveals that the army was actually kind of, it didn't see the army, but it was kind of close. So that was a bit of a waste of a scan and a bit of a waste of a drop. Serra's attempted run by doesn't really do a whole lot. But this map is going to get small. It's going to get condensed. I know we don't have a Lurker Den on the way quite yet, but I am also scared if Serral does manage to make that leap to getting 15 Lurkers. The attack into Maru is going to be very, very swift in a small map. And we will, I think, eventually get to that point. But first and foremost, the maxing out, getting those upgrades, and making sure to defend against all the drops.
Yeah, this is really interesting. We haven't seen the Lurker Den yet, and even if you're not intending to go for those Lurkers... Oh, Parasitic Bomb? No, he wants the abduct. Oh, cute move from Serral. Catches Maru just a little bit too late. Double abduct. He says, no, Parasitic Bomb, that's not gonna, that's not gonna kill them quickly. That's too much energy. Gets the abduct, saves 50 energy a pop on those, and he gets all 3 medevacs. Wow. Thanks. Nicely done. Good queen positioning. Great little combo right there. Behind this, we do have Maru heading on in to that late game with the Ghosts. But, man, Serral is playing some lockdown defense today.
Yeah, I think Maru's really going to regret having them tucked in there. I mean, I'm pretty sure they could have escaped out the left side. There were 2 spores that were there to maybe get one of the weaker medevacs, but...
You still got it with 2, I think.
Yeah, and I think it was just a choice. Like, I'm going to come back in later with that, but...
or at least keep you at home.
Yes, or that, sure, yeah.
Yeah, but like you don't want to just lose them for the cost of 3 abducts.
Exactly, exactly. That was a huge loss of resources, which Maru, the only reason got to a 4th base, he is kind of like accelerating now, so it was like, yeah, okay, time 4th base, and I was like 5th and 6th is also on the way, another command center on top of that, and he is starting up his +3 attack, but actually Serral managed to get ahead on that Carapace. Not going to wait for those upgrades to finish, just going to go for it. He is maxed out, comes in with the Vipers, gets a Blinding Cloud down, and goes after the SCVs. The Planetary not yet going to fall, absolutely will, however, as the Banelings realize that's the only thing they're going to be getting here. The Banelings not able to quite connect with a lot of the bio, so that was a costly investment there from Serral. He got the planetary, but a lot of the bio from Maru is still okay. Army supply is still okay as well. And we do have that remax now coming in for Serral, which is going to be quite fast. His economy has been very good for a while.
It certainly has, and just to highlight that point even more, Maru had another command center ready to go. Like you said, economy is still chilling, it's still roaring. We're seeing something that Maru has been liking to do in recent history, and that is the blue flame upgrade. There it is, perfect combo between the commentator and the observer right there. You love to see it, don't you, ZG?
Yes, you're becoming one of the hive mind.
That's the secret. I've never had free thought in my life.
Yes, yeah. Like all StarCraft commentators. No, but that's actually really interesting he's going into that. I've seen a lot of experimentation with going almost into basically mech against super late game Zerg, but I haven't seen it added in as quickly, more towards like the mid game section. So I'm interested to see how the dynamic does work. We've definitely seen it before in a couple of games, but it is certainly a new addition to TVZ. And we are officially now in the late game. The fourth base might have gotten bopped, but it was really for a hot second. Otherwise, plenty of command centers. It's just the map. The map plays out really weird to get to that turtle situation for the Terran. The fifth isn't just kind of like a little bit farther away. It's also really close to the Zerg, which sometimes is good for a Terran to be able to push and use their planetary as a defense if they have to fall back. In other games like this, where Serral's just been in such control, I don't know. Does Maru actually ever get that base? Maybe after taking a few good defensive fights.
Yeah, something really great pointed out by Observer once again is that Serral unsaturated both his natural and I believe third or fourth bases, sent the drones towards those contested bases and says, I'm going to gobble up these resources well before it would normally happen, and I'm going to force you to come to me. We've got Maru trying for these moves, but another couple of abducts are going to come on in. He won't get the one medevac. I mean, he gets a second one on the abduct, but he gets those Marauders, keeps the base alive, and this is really, I feel like this is making Maru kind of feel a little bit uncomfortable, more so than we're used to seeing.
That's the thing, right? Is that I think that generally this scenario looks really good for a Terran. Being able to take this base and then push to the Zerg's base, like literally not even like like a foot away, right? It's like so close. But if Serral is the one that's kind of ready and willing to engage, that's when I'm concerned about it. It looks like he is going to be forced to evacuate at least temporarily. Nope, going to actually pull the trigger, try and go for the fight. The tanks are siege, the libs are siege, the tank depth is really good as well, and yet Serral will continue forward. Getting some abducts, EMP does go down to try and stop some of the Vipers from doing more damage, but honestly, the Vipers had already been kind of taken care of. It was just the depth of Terran army that I think Serral might have underestimated. So he does pull back when he realizes he's not going to get any huge swamp. He's not going to actually be able to take care of this and push this back. He's kind of have to let this ground go.
Yeah, that looked at first, looked a little bit maybe over aggro from Serral, and then you're like, oh, wow, okay, there's actually not that much here on the front line. But you mentioned it, the depth of Maru's tank line was something else. We are going to see Serral trying to come in once again saying, hey, maybe I can just deny this base if you're not going to be too well set up. Oh, Abduct coming in on an already dead unit. The Lings and Banes kind of getting funneled by those tanks just a little bit. Very nice blinding cloud towards the tail end. But I think Serral is going to run out of units just before he would have broken through and really gotten to those juicy ghosts. But the tank count has been set very low. Wow. And now we see, is that the biggest remax of Lings in a professional StarCraft 2 game?
That was a lot. I don't know if I've ever seen more than 160, but...
that was...
yeah, that was a lot. And that's, of course, the power of Zerg in this scenario. They've had the economy, they've had their hatcheries, they've really been uninterrupted for a long period of time. I mean, just because Maru had to turtle a little bit, but then even with the drops, they just weren't effective, right? So Serral is just going to continue throwing bodies at the Terran. Very much campaign Zerg right now. They got the economy, they got the units. They're just going to keep throwing it at you. And even if you have a very good defensive setup, it seems unlimited. And Maru needs to take better fights than this one. He is going to get pounced upon by those Banelings. The Ghost cloak up, try to save their lives. But there's still so much Zerg left over. Lots of SCVs going down. Planetary once again falling. And Maru has not made any improvement in this game. In fact, he's taken a couple steps back.
He certainly has. Very well done by Serral. Already 538 Lings have gone down in this game. Maru eaten, unfortunately, a couple of blinding clouds couple too many times, I feel like, and he hasn't been able to make these holds. The EMPs just weren't able to connect the way that he needed, and he actually does not have enhanced shockwaves, which is making these fights just a little bit more difficult for him. He's not dead yet, but man, oh man, did he ever just get knocked back into the Stone Age.
He kind of feels like he's dead, actually.
Dead on his feet type of thing, yeah.
Yeah, you know, the problem with this map is also that it's not like he got a cheeky other side of the map base. In fact, Serral took his other side of the map base that he would have loved to have been able to take, but he couldn't afford any, units go down there, nor could he clear up the creep fast enough. So Maru is on his last legs as he once again is forced to retreat away from the mass Ling, Baneling, Hydra, swamping all over him. Orbital's not going to be able to help out defensively. I don't really know how much an anti-armor missile is going to save the day either. Maru now down 60 supply, down to 39 SCVs. Even a Ling run by, taking care of a couple of tanks apparently. And Serral, still remains mostly untouched. Now, is there something to be said about the size of the map as far as how many times Serral can do this? Yes, but I think it's been effective enough that we're not worried about that.
No, certainly not yet. If this happens, and Maru can manage to stabilize, really secures up this 4th base, manages to take that top left 5th, and can also knock Maru off of Serral taking his own base away from him, then we're talking about, okay, yeah, Serral's cost efficiency, we got to be worried about it. But as it stands right now, his cost efficiency has been quite strong, and the Ling run by going to come in. He's going to end up trading SCVs for drones, and in fact, I think Maru's just going to pull the trigger. He's only on 99 armor supply, and Serral is just going to come in. He is going to look to swamp here. Blinding Cloud hits the high ground tank. Lings, Banes flooding on forward. The Ghosts, well, they're going to be able to get back to the safety of this planetary, and one more tank. Once again, Maru will hold, but it's a hold in quotation marks, or a hold with an asterisk next to it.
Weirdly enough, that was almost the most promising hold, just because Serral has run a bank.
Yeah.
Like he's not actually remaxing, right? So maybe that point of like, well, how many times can you do this has actually already been hit. Serral has not had maybe as many bases or the drones as spread out as he could have on other maps as well. Some kind of wasted Banelings going in there too. That's what happens against Maru, right? You're like, well, this, in every other game I've ever played like this, it probably just ends after the 5th, 6th, 7th wave. But now Maru's like, oh yeah, you're getting a little light in the bank, are you? I'm taking some good engagements, am I? Okay, I'm gonna suddenly have a base. And once he gets a fresh base up, I feel like the dread starts to accumulate for the Zerg, where they're like, no, I had this. Like, I had this game. What is happening? Why do you have another base? Ling's in it to the main base by the looks of things. Nah, that's just natural, actually. And they're causing them chaos, but yeah, I think it's more just about, can Maru get that right side base up? He's very close to being able to land it. Burrow and Infestor action coming in now.
Yeah, he just landed it, I think, because the creep is so far forward. There is Neural Parasite available on these Infestors. He knows that right now, Maru's really only army is a couple Ghosts.
Oh, God.
Or, well, a couple tanks and some Ghosts. Oh, and now we see the SCVs. They're going to get forced away. He's going to lose a fair number of them. And Maru, well, now I'm pretty sure he's got to go.
Yeah. Well... Got to go, like, move his army, or
no,
just be
like,
I got to go.
He's got to attack right this second.
Yeah, it's not going to work out very well. Neural Parasite is basically denied, but there's just so few units here. Now, Serral's army supply really isn't all that impressive either, for considering the situation. Obviously, you look at the overall supply, and you're like, well, Maru's absolutely dead. Well, he is, yes, but his supply can sometimes be tough to tackle, Ghosts being all pesky as they are. But I do think it was too much. Serral might have needed a few more minutes than the past to get to a good army once again, but he could get there. And perhaps, again, he most importantly just keeps denying Maru's bases. There is no, oh my gosh, suddenly 20 mules dropped and he has a whole nother army again. Maru is checking under couch cushions right now for pennies.
Yeah, you know what? And he's not finding too much. Meanwhile, Serral, like, steps out his front door as their neighbors right there in this analogy. Maru's like, he's like finally found, a couple of coins, maybe 35 cents. Oh, the Neural Parasite on the Ghost. Well, that's actually just going to be lights out right there. Beautiful ending from Serral. And he is going to put himself on championship point. Has not yet won the TSL. It is really the only missing tournament besides GSL in his kind of on his trophy case. This is looking pretty exciting.
I believe so. That was, I don't want to say necessarily a flawless game. No game of StarCraft is flawless. Although there are some games where no one loses any units. But Anyways, this was, it kind of felt like it was as close too. You know, the kind of dominating removal of all the drops. Never felt like Maru really had a say in this game. And then making a scenario that I would say more often favors the Terran, where they are close to maxed out with a good army, pushing on to that next expansion closer to you. That's more of a timer on the Zerg side, where they're like, oh no, now it's getting closer, now it's taking up my bases, he's cannibalizing the bases, I'm going to be in trouble. And Serral instead was like, well, no, I'm just going to hard stop you. Small map, good army from Maru, only so many chances, don't mess this up, don't throw away too much, and Serral did not mess it up. Every engagement he took just chipped away at Maru, and with the removal of his 5th base entirely in that series, he never really got one up, there was no way that Maru could recover.
Yeah, and just playing that Hydra Ling Bane for quite a while, and finally adding on those Hydras. Hydra Ling Bane, Viper, never goes for those lurkers, just says, I am going to put my foot on the pedal, I'm going to take it, and I'm going to push it to the metal. And will this man be able to survive on one of the best defensive maps, or better defensive maps in the pool for Onside Gaming? He needs your energy. He is down on the ropes. Give it up for Maru.
In the top right, as the yellow Zerg for Team ENCE Esports, he is Serral.
Those are some good zoom-in timings right there. We had Maru with the taking his hand off the keyboard to readjust. You're like, it's not feeling 100%. And then Serral with that big, deep breath, he's like, I'm one map away. I'm one map away from the championship right here. Maru, well, he's going to mix things up here. He is going to go for the command center first. This is something that has been coming back in vogue so much. How long do you think it's going to be? I've been asking this question all weekend. I've been asking it now for, I feel like, a month. How long is it going to be before Zerg start trying to punish this with just a blind, super committed push? Proxy Hatch Ravager, something
yeah, I was
Bly-esque.
gonna say, the problem is for the Zerg, right, is that it has to be super committed, and early pool doesn't do the trick. So I actually don't know if there is an answer to that. Actually, kind of on the flip side, I guess Terran versus Zerg commentators right now is kind of more of a question for me watching the pros. Why don't they do it more often? Because the Zerg has to be so committed in the attempted counter to
punishment,
it. Yeah, that's actually the command center first seems to be gotten away with, I mean, more often than not. But that's one for the, I don't know, the statisticians of the...
Statisticians, yeah.
Statisticians?
Stats?
Statisticians?
What? Yeah, well, statisticians?
You know what? We'll look this up later. This is for the smart people in the room, and I'm just not one of them.
Oh, statisticians. They're statisticians, and they're also tacticians. Statisticians. We're going to be seeing a 2-1-1 as a follow-up from this. I love it.
Yeah. Command center first into a 2-1-1.
I think of TY when I think of this build. And then I get a little smile on my face. I'm like, TY. He'll be back soon.
I miss TY.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully he comes back.
Oh, he's coming back. Don't you put that out here. I'm claiming it. I'm saying he's coming back. It's happening eventually.
Well, I do love myself 2-1-1. I think it's an awesome build theoretically. I think the problem really became that it just was, especially the 2-base version. It's just that it became like the Zergs really could predict, like they could figure it out and they could defend it pretty much perfectly. And there were some variations to it, like I guess command center first versus not, but are either also like a Hellbat version of it or any other trickiness that you could find. Well, this is like the earliest scout you could ever have in a 2-1-1.
Yeah, Maru, I think, did he cut a Marine or something to make this happen? I feel like you're not supposed to be able to get in with that Ling. Absolutely not, and that is such big news for Serral. That's early enough. Oh no, he wasn't mining any more gas. I was going to say that's early enough that he could go for Ling Bane all in response to this and actually just try and kill him. But he took the drones off gas. Normally, I'm used to, well, I do it myself because I'm lazy about resaturating. You leave one drone on gas, you mine gas over time. Serral, of course, he's better at the game than myself. He's like, no, I'll take it off. But I actually feel like that was early enough that I think he could have gone for it in any other scenario. And I wonder if he would have if he had that gas bank already accrued a little bit.
Yeah, maybe. Certainly has the flexibility to do so. Another perhaps risky maneuver. Plus, it already has some success rate earlier on, scouting and then countering the build. But yep, not this time around. So macro it is. And then talking about my point, it just seems like they were really able to perfect the defense and thus the kind of macro that goes along with successful defense to then eventually overwhelm. I know we still had Terrence try out the 2-1-1, and especially the 3CC 2-1-1 still had its place, but it just I don't know, it started to feel very one-sided. Yeah, that's the way I'll put it. But we'll see if Maru proves that wrong. I think what's really cool about it is that it can be like execution based, how good you are with the Marines, how active you are with it. So I know Bjorn can still do it right. But yeah, being scouted so early, Serral can kind of line everything up, be prepared. He's going to see the Marines move out maybe, but they should be waiting for the medevacs.
I actually kind of love what Maru did here. He is still going to be pushing out with this, and he's actually pushing out at a relatively normal timing, but the medevacs are quite a bit delayed. What he did instead was he built a very quick third command center. He has macroed quite hard behind us, and if we look at the drone count right now, I'm actually loving this situation for Maru here. Oh, the command center is... Oh, well, he sees the medevacs, but I mean, that's not too big a deal. Doesn't see the third command center.
Actually, the medevac timing is kind of sus, right?
Oh, it's super sus.
Yeah, so he actually might be able to figure it out off of that, to be honest.
He is very good.
Yeah.
He is kind of good at this there StarCraft.
He still has to take the double drop seriously. More so, I guess, where they're going to come in from can be really annoying for the Zerg player side of things. They have to have the Queens and the Lings. In this case, though, Serral did bother getting actual... Did he actually get the Banelings as well? Yeah, and which I feel like is not... like often what you would see, like his Ling Queen can take care of the first 16 Marines without Baneling help. So I do wonder, is that, I mean, not for me to judge, but like an over defense? As you can see, Maru's just gonna leave Banelings or no?
Yeah, I think he was thinking it was a heavier commitment. So Maru gets away with one kind of, and this is something that actually happened, between Serral and Showtime, where Showtime was able to... Oh, that's a nice little pick-off right there, getting a couple of Lings. Showtime was... Well, the Queens, though, they're going to say, get the heck out of Dodge. Quit interrupting me with the game. I'm trying to make points about the game. Blah, blah, blah. But no, we got Serral, who thought that, he wasn't playing against the Robo-Opener. He was certain that it was going to be either Glaive Adepts or DTs, and he ended up building a lot of static defenses. Set him behind. We're not used to seeing it. We're not used to seeing Serral getting tricked, but it happened here, and Maru is in a great position as a result of it.
Yeah, surprisingly so. It's going to start off very well when the Ling got in and scouted everything, but
yeah,
actually Serral really has not been able to just run away with that scout and be like, I did everything perfectly up until this point. There has been a little bit of like, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? So we do have the first push here from Maru. First, like, really legit push that comes with tanks, taking advantage of this brutal spot on Data C. Doesn't actually reach the hatchery, but you can retreat back into it, so any Ling Baneling is trying to chase after you, take some heavy losses.
Yeah, it certainly will. We are going to see Bane Speed completing right here, but 1-1 is going to be a ways away from finishing. And he's even got the double tank here. Doesn't want to move forward, doesn't really have to. He can just slow siege this. Serral is going to wrap around from the left side and try and wipe out this army. But Maru does have 4 medevacs ready to go. If he'd like, he can lift those Marines. There he goes. Nice save. Leaves the other ones. The Marines underneath those medevacs initially were like, oh man, you're going to pick us up, right? And they're like, sorry, got to take another call. Bye.
Yeah, exactly. Another call. Bye. There's a serial killer in my room. Sorry, man. Another call. Bye.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, exactly.
That sounds brutal. Sorry to hear that.
Well, now we got the multitasking going down here. So 2 drops of, well, more than 2 medevacs on the left side. And actually, less Marines will fit in. Thanks to a late pickup, the Banelings actually get some connections. Main base drop also doesn't go particularly well as medevac gets torn down from the Queen, so can only evacuate with 8 of those Marines. And this so far has been a good follow-up defense. I mean, Serral took care of the tank push rather swiftly as well, so I could credit there. And now has the Hydras getting those upgrades. Moving on to 2-2 as Maru moves on to his 4th. Does he have a second factory? I don't believe he does. I think it's just the 1. No, he is. Wait, oh, it's in the 3rd base. That's my bad. We did see that.
Yeah.
So no.
Bit of a peculiar, I guess, peculiar place for it because of where the reactor is. We're going to take a look at the replay of Serral's defense right here. Nicely done. Gets the transfuses on the Queens, kind of occupying. and comes in for the flank. Well done right there. Knocks out those tanks, turns that position into mush. And Serral, like you said, he kind of evened things up a little bit here. And Maru, his armory was unfortunately a little bit late, so his upgrades, the advantage, I would say one of the bigger advantages that he had, kind of disappeared, went up in smoke. He's going to follow it up with the Drilling Claw Widow Mines. Actually, hang on, this drop, oh, he's not lifting up. He's going to lose both Oh, well, he doesn't lose both medevacs, but he loses all the Marines.
He loses the most important one.
Yeah.
Yep. So once again, Serral doing an excellent job defending against all the little drops. Definitely not like last game where it just felt like there was really nothing going well for Maru. But yeah, the similar scenario in that Serral's not taking any unnecessary damage at this point. Now moving on into that hive, another potential late game scenario. Last map just really didn't, I think, play to some of Maru's strengths, which is the kind of like inevitable 5th base. He certainly struggled to get the 5th base before, but was completely denied in that last game. Medevac does go down, but only after unloading the Widow Mines. All of them get some pretty decent shots. 12 drones and a handful of Baneling, and then another attack off to the left actually does more damage to the Marines.
Well, I mean, Widow Mine man giveth, Widow Mine taketh away. That whole little skirmish going down before 2-2 had finished up for Serral, so Maru finding a very small timing where he was able to trade efficiently with that, but the Widow Mines were really the heroes there. Well done, Widow Mine Commander. We salute you. Maru, he's there was a nice little sequence for him, but I think who do you think's ahead right now? I think it's pretty even, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it's even.
Yeah.
I mean, Maru's doing his thing, and Serral's kind of doing his thing, and Maru's thing is doing all this little bit of harassment, which actually is getting something done, maybe not as much as you would hope, but something, while getting up to 4 base perfectly situated. Now moving on to a 5th, which, like I said, I do believe is inevitable on this map. Last map with the scenario that had played out, it was such a contest, one that Maru absolutely lost. This time around, I think it'll be contested. It will eventually happen, as this is the time where I'm flipping over into the Maru side of like, well, if we get to this point, doesn't he just win? Isn't that just what happens? Maybe not against Serral, but he certainly is very tricky in those late game scenarios. And Serral might actually have a tough time if that 5th base gets down. And then the 5th, I feel like, is the kind of the cascades, the 6th and 7th. Good Widow Mine shot there. Takes down a lot of units. And this one also is going to get a good shot.
Oh my God. Man, Maru's Widow Mines in the last little couple of minutes have been, well, they've been popping off quite a bit. We're going to see Lingbane Hydra coming in against this army. Most of the Widow Mines going down at the front of this fight, but there are tanks behind this. That tank-mine combo, such a powerful one. We do have to point out a couple of upgrades missing from both sides here. No +3 armor for Maru. The Lurker upgrades have not yet been started here for Serral. So both of them, I mean, they're both pushing each other to the limit.
Yeah, I'm surprised about those Lurker upgrades. I mean, at least he got the Lurker Den. That's the option for that. But
yes.
Yeah. I mean, a little low on the gas, maybe prioritizing. And the opportunity for a big Baneling Hydra just roll over the army is still kind of here on this map. But I think I really just do believe that the map and the scenario is just different. We even have a little bit more SimCity kind of helping the depth of the tanks too, not just the forward place 5th base. So I like the way that command center is positioned. But we also have some of those late game additions now for Serral as well. Finally starting the Lurker upgrade, yes, but I'm looking at the Nidus Worm.
Yeah.
Didn't even have to go for it last time.
Yep. Nidus Worm can absolutely be a game changer here. Serral already has shown that he is going pretty hyper-aggression in this series. 2 all-ins really in the first couple games. Then he goes Hydraling Bane with no Lurkers. Finally goes Hydraling Bane again to start things off. Has not shown those Lurkers yet, and there is a little gap of sensor tower on at the top left of the main base, but hold that thought. We are going to see an attack coming on in from Serral. The EMPs are not going to be forthcoming, and we are seeing Serral pushing on through on the left side. He's not going to be able to break through fully, but he will start to pry the defenses of Maru apart just a little bit.
A little bit. The supply it actually looks quite nice for him. That is, so getting 84 lings. But it's not the same prying open, right?
Yes,
like if this
not
is the
the same
can
as game
opener,
number
like
4,
it's,
yeah.
yeah,
3.
exactly. It's not that it's actually staying partially open. I feel like Maru is quickly coming back in and like stapling it down, and it's totally fine again, right? So especially because the 5th base actually is up and running, has not been denied. And like I said, if it's a 5th, it feels like it's going to be a 6th and a 7th, all headed in that bottom right direction. Now this is where I would say that the Terran has the benefit of having a push and defense kind of around the same area, which can be very intimidating to the Zerg. There is that option to go into more of the tech-heavy, I guess, unit composition for the Zerg, so Lurkers, perhaps even Brewers as the game goes on, but more so as the game condenses, if it really is going to be hyper-focused around a certain portion of the map as minerals start to run out. So still a little ways off on that one, but even Serral prepping for perhaps a very late game while also going in for the engagement. This time the Vipers were EMP'd rather perfectly right from the get-go. Ghosts are tucked in the back, nice and, well, relatively safe. Yeah, got to run a little bit more past the Planetary, which does hold, but the 5th base Planetary did not. That was at least successfully cracked, and actually Maru's supply doesn't look particularly good after that.
No, it does not. We talked about the Remax in the game on Waterfall. Now we've got Serral coming in with another big swell of units. This is looking very tough for Maru. He is most certainly on the ropes, down so much supply at this point. He still has a great economy. He's still got a lot of command centers. He's still got the potential to hold out here, but it is looking more and more grim. Still a ton of larva behind this for Serral, so he can remax. He can go, he can remax, and he can go again very quickly. And the next minute and a half for Maru are going to be extremely scary.
He lives in fear, though. He's not been a stranger to the situation. Where the 5th base is once again up, although it is an orbital, not a planetary. Some of the tanks not sieged, actually. No, well, I guess the orbital just gets the lift this time around. Serral is once again reaching pretty far back. Most of the banelings have now been destroyed, and the Hydra's going to get sniped down, so that's not as effective. 12 SCVs, handful of bio, but in this side, actually a lot of SCVs still live, and the command center lives because, well, it just lifted.
Yeah, that was actually about as good as that defense could have gone. That was very nice from Maru. He does lose 12 SCVs, but like you said, yeah, many command centers. We got a ton of rebuild potential. And I think the command center or the orbital is maybe the way to go. But as the observer points out right there, not only does Maru, need to secure this 5th, he needs to secure a new base pretty soon after that. Yeah. Because he is going to be going for, a pretty mined-out situation quite soon. And finally, we're going to see Maru start to do something aggressively with the nuke. He's got a nuke ready to go, but here comes the Lurkers. Abduct on the Liberator. Lings and Banes are moving on forward. We are going to see an EMP hitting those Vipers at the tail end. The Ghosts are not being split, but the Planetary is going to provide the defense that was necessary. Great hold once again from Maru.
Yeah.
And he stays alive once more.
Even better.
Even better. He is starting to gain some defensive velocity here. A little bit of momentum on this hold.
Yeah, actually, that was the most promising one. Yeah, perhaps. Because as you just said, he really needs to get to a new base. Absolutely true. So we needed a better engagement than the previous one, a much better engagement than the one before that as well, to then hopefully push through this bottom section of the map, which is his next goal. As he moves to the bottom right, though, Serral moves his Nidus Swarm into the middle left. Of course, right on top of Maru's base, and he has not noticed by the looks of things how many Lurkers are actually in the Nidus Swarm that cause the maximum amount of chaos. Lurkers and Lings, really. It's going to be what's really annoying to clean up. If he has any Liberators, which he is getting now, that can help. So maybe this isn't the biggest of deals, because Serral also didn't commit a lot of units into it, but it is going to, send something back to deal with it.
Oh.
In this case, it was literally all the Ghosts, which seems like a straight-up mistake to me, as the Baneling Viper comes down the front lines. There's not that much bio. The tanks trying their best to stop the flood of Zerg, and the Planetary once again there to help, but finally that gets destroyed, and Maru, well, that is not a good supply to me, man. 120 supply to 187. After things seem to be going better, it all really did fall apart with that Nidus Swarm. And not even because of the Nidus Swarm itself, it just drew so many units back. It drew his attention away.
It sure did. That was a pretty devastating moment right there for Maru, and I think he said it best. It was an unfortunate mistake. It was a forced error, but only not in the most normal sense that we're used to, where it's like, you don't split your army correctly. it's an unfortunate situation here for Maru. We are going to see the Neural Parasite on these Ghosts. He did it in the previous game. He's looking for it once again. This could be devastating. The Lings, the Banes, they're coming on forward. There's the Neural Parasite. He gets the EMP once again. The Banes, they're rolling on forward. They are going to continue on forward for now. Just kidding. They're going to back off. They're going to get out of here. But Maru can't even hold this 5th. Serral is bleeding him out.
It was one really decent hold into just like a really, really terrible one.
Yeah.
And that terrible one really, I think, actually sealed the deal. It was kind of the nail in the coffin, but you need just like a couple of more hammers to the nail.
Yeah.
And that should do it, which Serral is just prepping for every single time. He's taken the entire map. He's got all the bases, still on a wonderful drone count as he also sends a superior army count once again into Maru's side of the map. Once again, also chasing after these Ghosts. Just so slippery. They're going to actually be able to escape. But having just Ghosts only gets you so far. I know Ghosts are good, guys, but you also maybe need like an economy and some splash and maybe more than 2 Marines. That would be nice, wouldn't it? But Maru can't get there. He's on his last life in TSL, the last representative for Korea too. But Serral, he has been dying to get this victory. Denied twice from Zurich players, but it looks like going up against the Terran, he will finally be getting this achievement. TSL 9 goes to Serral. Well played by him.